Ladies and gentlemen, today I witnessed one of the craziest things I have ever seen in my life on a chessboard, and I have been playing this game for 23 years, and I've been alive for 28 years, almost 29. I'm basically a dinosaur. I gotta share this with you. AI is the hottest talking point in any field. In any field, maybe above like the age of 16, where people are now using AI in school a bit more. They're talking about it at their job, at tech conferences. AI in chess has been better than us for 20 years, but we have found a way to live in a symbiotic relationship. We try to mutually benefit one another. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we pit chess AI against each other, and absolute magic happens. And that's what happened today when two of the best computers in the world faced off against each other, Stockfish, which is the best chess computer in the world, and Leela. Now, some of you who watch my videos consistently, or even inconsistently, may remember that some years ago, the Google DeepMind team made a computer called AlphaZero. I think if Google continued to pursue that project, AlphaZero would still be the best computer in the world, but they didn't. So right now it's Stockfish and Leela. And I'm going to show you this game because this thing will absolutely blow your mind. Friendly reminder, we got a bunch of stuff coming up. We've got a fan event coming up in Stockholm, Sweden on November 3rd. 2 tiers of tickets have sold out. There is general admission remaining to come hang out, watch the simul. Anna and I will be playing 60 people at the same time. Imagine a room of 60 chess players. Horrifying. Imagine the smell. No, seriously. Hygiene code will be enforced. I will take a shower. I will wear deodorant myself. I will lead by example. That is still available, and my chessboard drops in a few days. It will stock up on the glorious shelves of the Walmart Supercenter. All those links are in the description, and let's get into this game. So the way chess computers play against each other, okay? This is very important, so listen. I mean, as opposed to not listening for the first 2 minutes of this video. The way chess computers play against each other is they force them to play a certain position with white and black. So these two engines had to play this position, one game where Stockfish was white, and another game where Leela was white. All right, and the reason for that is if the engines played what they call the best moves, they would make a draw every single time. Nobody would win, they would take no risk. So the opening they were forced to play was actually a Caro-Kann defense. And this is one of my favorite openings. I've played it my entire life. White plays d4, black plays d5, and white plays the best approach, which is the advanced variation. Like, at all levels, according to the computer, this is the best. However, at most of your levels, and I'm not insulting you, I'm simply saying, it's actually kind of difficult to maintain a center. It's kind of like balancing on a balance beam. When somebody knows how to do it, they look spectacular. They might even do front flips on it. If you do it, you'll fall. Maybe even, you'll get hit in the groin. Like, it's not good. C5 is the move played by black. That is the advanced variation, second most common response. You try to undermine the center, and now white takes and tries to protect the pawn. Now, white pins the knight, right? That's what this is, a pin to the king, so the knight can't take the pawn. The queen goes to c7 to attack both of these pawns. White plays b4, queen e5. Now, if you check the human database, this position is hardly ever reached. And from here, the computers are completely on their own. Now they are given this position. White has an advantage, but they have to play, okay? Now, why does white have an advantage? White has a bit more space on this side of the board, and the black queen is kind of moving around early a lot. So black is losing time, right? Very natural developing move by white, which attacks the queen. The queen's got to go somewhere. It goes all the way back to b8, not to c7, where I suppose the computer thought it would be a target, but there's actually an even deeper idea here, and the point is to play a6, put the queen on a7, and play b6 targeting the center. Like, this is mega deep stuff, queen b8. But this is what you get when you have 3879. Is that a prime number, by the way? 17... 120? No, it's divisible by 3. That's unfortunate. I thought maybe it was a prime number. What is that? 1,600. I don't know. I'm trying to divide it, but Anyway, it's not 1,600 because 1,600 plus 1,600 plus 1,600 would be way too high. So I'm not going to calculate it right now, but you can calculate it. It's got to be a 3 at the end, 3. Yeah, now I'm gonna be curious. All right, now I don't even have a. See, this is the good stuff here. What's 3,879 divided by 3? 1293. 1293. Sensational. There we go. I don't know why I had to. Is 3,822 a prime number? I don't know. Stay tuned for the next Gotham math video. The computer goes queen d4. The point is to prevent black from playing e5. Queen d4 is not a move that any human considers here. Every human castles. It's like no human plays queen d4. So Stockfish plays queen d4. Leela responds with an attack on the bishop. The bishop goes, no, it doesn't go back. White now plays bishop f4. So that was the point, to hit the queen again and improve the position of this bishop. So the queen had to defend the bishop. That is why the queen went there. The queen goes to a7. Now I'm very confused because here I would, of course, play bishop a4. Why would I ever trade the bishop for the knight there? It's a terrible decision. Black would go here. I would castle. Black would castle. I would play a3, and then the game would go on. However, Stockfish operates on a different plane of existence. And here, Stockfish, with its bishop under attack, just simply gives it away for the knight. Gives it away. Why? When I see this move, all I can do is try to explain it. Like, I don't know the answer. I think this bishop was given away because this bishop, the counterpart, is pretty bad and is only going to be able to ever depart on this side because here you are totally boxed in. And I think Stockfish basically is saying, and you should all listen to this, we both have 7 pawns. The more pawns each player has, the more closed the position is. Knights thrive in a closed position, not bishops. And if you look at black's bishops, they're walled in. So I'm going to have a very easy game now by completely dominating the game. And that's exactly, look, it plays a4. It didn't want its bishop on a4. It wanted this structure where these pieces are stuck. So bishop e7, now white plays knight bd2, black castles. And again, if I give this position to a human, most humans, by the way, they look at this position and they go, well, I'm not going to castle this way. I lose a pawn and, you know, my king is open. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with castling this way. Black can't attack me. If black plays a5, I don't have to do anything. I can just relax. So probably in this position, I'm going to play short castle. Maybe knight e5. Like, knight e5 is also a nice move. Knight jumps into the center. It sees the bishop. But most people here castle in a second. Okay, Stockfish doesn't castle. It plays bishop e5. Fine, I guess. Not knight e5, which looks way more natural. You put some pressure on the knight. I mean, you're never going to take it, right? Like, you're never going to do this because this just activates the bishop. There's the bishop. There we go. So, bishop e5, rook d8, and now Stockfish shows you its true power. You see, engines know when to break all principles. Again, if I ask you in this position, what is the most natural move for white? You say short castle. I mean, obviously, you haven't castled. You're taught to castle, put the rook in the center, right? So, instead we have the bishop going to e5. And the point is, the queen now sees the 4th rank when the bishop used to stand there, right? And here, Stockfish plays g4. Leaving the king in the center of the board, defending, and launching an attack on Leela's castled king by just keeping the king right here. And you know the crazy thing, right? The crazy thing is this is not purely an attack on the king. G4 is also a restriction. The knight now can't go anywhere. So Leela knows if it just sits around, it's going to lose. It tries to create a little counterplay on this side of the board. If you take, you lose this, right? Stockfish now plays rook g1. I mean, if g4 was an indication it wasn't castling, rook g1 is literally saying I'm not going to castle because I've moved my rook. It's just pure restriction. So we have a b4, c b4. But now the question is, what's next? Black cannot take this pawn. I do not recommend you self-pin. you're gonna probably end up losing the bishop. It's not a horrendous move, actually. It's just very risky. Like g5, knight h5. There's this move, rook g4, which is absolutely wicked, trying to go b5 in some lines. Queen a6, b5, queen b5, queen a4. Like, I think Leela saw this and was like, I don't want to lose my bishop, right? Why would I lose a bishop? So cb4, and now Leela says, well, I played a6, ab, so now this diagonal is open, so here's queen a6. Just a slow improving move. Now my queen has a lot more vision. It sees a lot more, and maybe I'm going to get into the position. We have g5, knight h5, and again, more than even being an attack on the king, what Stockfish is doing here is kind of hitting around the black pieces. It's like when a boxer hits the stomach before trying to hit the head. You just poke. You're poking. All right, you're trying to like see, oh, boop, is there a weakness over there? Am I exploiting anything, right? So the queen goes to g4. Again, the point is to get black to commit a pawn move. Now there's weaknesses near the king that we've created. But I mean, no human can play like this. I mean, this is like having an overly hot plate in the kitchen. Like, your king can't be this open. Most people are not good enough at this. Now the knight replaces the queen. So it's kind of fascinating how from this position, white went here, 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 put the queen where the pawn was, and put the knight there. Look at this is like origami. I mean, everything folds into the right spot. G5, queen G4, knight T4. It's like solving a Rubik's Cube, but chess. Like, by the way, there's a Rubik's Cube like behind me. At least there used to be. I think it's outside of this room now. Anyway, I don't cube, but my wife is pretty good. Not like, you know, competitive, crazy good, like 20 seconds, but like, yeah, she could solve. I never learned. So you're basically playing Rubik's Cube chess. This knight goes back to G7. Listen, Leela is also playing Rubik's Cube chess. Now, what did I tell you about closed positions? In a closed position, bishops are worse than knights because, as you can see, right? Except white's bishop is a god. So Stockfish is dominating this game, right? Totally dominating, but black is defending. You go queen back to e2. Why? If you trade pieces, this is an improvement. In every single chess position, you got to ask yourself, what if we traded certain pieces? If we traded this bishop for this knight, black opens up the center and gets a very, very good position, right? If we trade the queens, however, this is beneficial for white because black loses the only active piece they had. And then white simply marches down 3 pawns on this side of the board and wins the game. Which is why in this position, instead of taking like this, Leela plays knight f5. And the point of knight f5 is that if this trade happens, this is actually better for black because black stops some of the pawns. It's very minor, but that's the difference. But knight f5, this is the last piece that can be active, which Stockfish immediately removes from the game, and now plays f4. And this is domination. This is domination. Black can try to create counterplay with the f pawn, but after this massive trade, take, this endgame is forever better for white. Why? Because the knight lands on e5, and now you have the king walking, and this is total domination. Black has no counterplay here. That is the most important thing. You have to look, can you create counterplay with your pawns? No, you can't. Which is why in this position, Leela says, no more queen trade. I'm going back to a8, and I'm kind of waving you on, like a matador, you know? I'm waving the flag. Let's go. Well, Stockfish begins the march. a5. It's just a matter of time. This is exactly how Stockfish takes the soul out of its AI opponents, because nobody plays it on a human level. Now Leela's like, I gotta do something, d4. That is a pure giveaway of a pawn, but if taken, look at how much advantage is given back. It's better for black. So you cannot be gluttonous here. In fact, the best thing to do is to completely ignore the pawn. To ignore it. You don't want it. If you want it, you're gonna try to get it with the knight. Now the bishop can't go to b5. So the bishop goes here, the knight takes, and even though you were gluttonous, there's nothing here. Right, there's nothing. The bishop sees open fields, but there's nobody there. But this is nice. So Leela gives up a pawn, but now plants the bishop on e4. It's like a lighthouse, shining light on all sides of the board. Queen c4, but it doesn't really matter. Now, if you give, you know, a few more moves, b5 is coming, and then I'm simply breaking it. Now, it's not the end of the game, but it's close. Like, look, queen a6, b5, queen a8, c6, takes, knight takes. I mean, it's simply bad news. But the only thing holding white back here is the weak king, which Stockfish will deal with. But look at b6. Leela's not done. It gives away another pawn. It allows Stockfish to have 3 pawns on that side of the board. And yet, after something like bishop d6, suddenly the pieces start falling. And this kind of shows you how in chess, the 2 most important things are material and king safety. Having more material is great. But when your king is out in the open, all of a sudden, you're really going to start feeling that heat. You play a couple of bad moves. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now, not to mention you're going to lose the knight here, but also your king is extremely weak. So b6. Stockfish, unfortunately, is rated 3,879, which, by the way, is divisible by 1,293. And c6 is on the board, and that pawn is 2 squares away from queening, and so is this pawn. So Stockfish has ran through. 2 pawns are about to queen. Leela is desperately defending this position. Desperately defending. Right? I mean, it's looking like it's simply over. b5 is played. By the way, that pawn can be taken, which would leave white with 3 pawns. But somehow, black is fighting back. Like, somehow it's not over. Which is why, after b5, Stockfish simply backs up. This is protected. This is protected. That's protected very well. That's protected. That's protected. And now you give white a couple moves. White's going to go a7. White's probably going to bring the second rook. Bring the king, bring the second rook. Rook a5 maybe. And black will run out of moves. So Leela here, desperate times, desperate measures, tries to do something on the other side of the board. h6. I mean, like, that's how you know it's over. And Stockfish is like, it's the only pawn I haven't moved. h4. Just absolutely nothing. You just can't get anything going. You are walled in. All right? It's just a matter of time. I've got to play queen a7. Just making solo moves. There's no threat. Right? No threat at all. I told you, Stockfish is going to bring the second rook. There it is. It could have done it other ways. Maybe it's even going to go rook h3, rook h2 and bring it like this, because otherwise it would, would get captured. Leela brings its last piece, and we are coming to the spot where an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Leela's doing absolutely everything it can in this position not to lose. Stockfish now plays king to f1. Do you know what the idea of king to f1 is? It's to bring the rook down the e-file, and also to get the king off of any dark squares, like the dark squares here, for example. Leela now plays h5. h5 is sealing that position shut. Now all play will rotate over here. Right, so no play is now possible on that entire side of the board. If white is able to break through here, white will probably just win the game. Here's rook e3. The bishop goes back to f8. Here's rook e2. It's just a matter of time. We're going to go here. We're going to slowly maneuver. We're going to trade pieces off, and we're going to win. We have 2 passed pawns. I mean, you simply cannot stop us. Leela plays king h7. I mean, moves like bishop f8 and king h7 are just signs of not being able to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, Stockfish, rook g3, rook e3, rook e2, rook d2, is going to trade black's most active rook. Rook d8. The rook is backed up. But the pawn is hanging. And the game is simply over. Now, maybe in that position, maybe, I don't know, you could have just went king g8. You could have just done this. Then I would have went rook a5. Then if you just keep repeating moves, at some point I'm going to take on b5. We're going to trade the rooks. I mean, obviously there was a queen hanging, but the point is that I'm going to get through. So rook d8. Stockfish takes the final pawn, and Leela is on its last moments. Queen b6. Attacking the knight, attacking the pawn. Queen c4. I mean, this is fatal. Look at this. Queen f7's mate. It's mate on the board. The only thing that black can do here is defend with bishop g7. Stockfish takes, absolute juggernaut. And in this position, Stockfish overlooked something so heinous. This, I told you, it's one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. Browser-based Stockfish, this one, doesn't even see the problem. It still thinks it's winning. It's not that I'm going to take on g7. If it takes on g7, I go knight d6. It's a fork. I have f7. Everything is falling. After bishop takes g7, Leela finds rook takes c6. Did you see that? Did you see that? Stockfish thinks that after queen takes f7, the game is over. How could it not be? You move the bishop anywhere, it's mate. There's no way to stop the attack. You can take the rook. You can even take the knight with a check. You can take a full knight with a check. I go king g1. You have no other checks. You go back to b6. I block the check and I mate you at the same time. So it's over. But why is it not over? Because in this position, Leela uncorks a 4-punch combination sent from the gods themselves. When Leela played the move h5, from here, it was sealing shut its possible legal moves because what it was trying to do was set up what we call a stalemate. If anybody doesn't know what a stalemate is, it's when you have no legal moves, but your king is not in danger, and therefore the game ends in a forced draw. And we begin the stalemate with bishop g2 check. You have to take this with the rook, because if you take it with the king, I take the rook, and then it's check, and then you get mated. And you don't have any other choice. If you play king e1, I play queen g1, bad news. Or queen e3 and queen g, like it's bad news. So we play rook g2, but what is the follow-up? I mean, we already know if queen b5 or run away. The follow-up is rook c1! Just completely losing the rook. Completely losing the rook. If you go king e2, now I can take. You can't run away from the checks. King f2, rook d2, it's over. So rook c1, I have to take. It's still not queen b5, but instead of that, we sacrifice the second rook. And here is where it gets really wild. If you don't take the rook, I go here. And when you run away, you get mated. So you have to take the rook, because otherwise rook d3, queen e3. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Rook d1, and now the final touch. Queen to f2 check, completely forcing you to take the queen, and the game ends in a stalemate, and Leela saves the day. 4 pieces sacrificed in a row, 22 points of material incinerated for the saving of the king. And that brings us back to how on earth did a 3900 level engine miss this? Well, it did. It happens. And it's kind of wild. And what's crazy really is the defensive stand that Black took. Reanalyzing the position, taking this pawn was a mistake. We're living in an era you can be up 3 pawns as a 38-79 and still not win the game. Instead of taking here, there's multiple plans. So one of the plans that I saw instead of knight takes b5 was maybe rook d1, where Black is able to take this pawn, White fully invests in this pawn, and slowly just tries to trade pieces and wins the game. Just fully investing in that pawn, not letting Black get active. This position was winning. We almost never see Stockfish make mistakes like this. Queen b6, and I mean, absolute cinema. Bishop g2, rook c1, rook d1, queen of, I mean, done. One of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's a shame it only ends in a draw and not by checkmate, but in the final position, Stockfish is up 27 points of material and doesn't win the game. What more can I say? I've already said everything I have to say. Get out of here.